And I am waiting on notification now, ma'am. Okay, boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have an incredible guest with us, one who we are very humbled and honored to give us some information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than attorney Sister Sadiyah Karriem. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Well, alaikum salam, sir, and Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Kareem to you as well. Now, Sister Sadiyah, my first question is, right now there's a lot of stuff going on dealing with crime and law enforcement and things of this nature. You being an attorney, how important has your role been and the roles of other attorneys been in our community?
Oh, it's absolutely necessary, especially when you look at the demographics of alleged criminals. When I go into the courtroom, I mostly see Black and I see brown. And when you look at the statistics for Black lawyers, especially Black women lawyers, we're like less than 1% of the total number of attorneys in the United States. But then when you look at those who are incarcerated, you're looking at 33% African Americans, Latinos, minorities who are incarcerated or in custody or in jail, and we're 12% of the population. So then what happens is you get these attorneys who don't understand your culture, don't understand your background, who really not fighting for you and can't really advocate on your behalf. And so when you have attorneys like me who go in there for freedom, justice, and equality, I see deeper than what it is. And anybody who knows me, especially here in Houston, they know that I'm the godly warrior lawyer. So I have backing, I have spiritual backing, and I don't put my spirituality to the back of the courtroom when I'm representing my client. And so, I choose to represent us because I believe everybody needs mercy and grace and an advocate who's going to really look out for them. And that's me.
Crazy to a lot. Beautiful. And if there are people who are in Houston and watching now, where how can they reach out to you to get your service?
Oh, absolutely. So, I've been in the game for almost 20 years. 4/4/2020. So we got that 444 spiritual number on that. And they can reach me via social media or, my business line, 832-623-2323, SadiyahEvangelista.com. So, many ways to find me. I stopped marketing. I stopped, sending out information because now I've been involved in the community so much that people actually come see me and I get to choose my cases. So yes, sir. Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. And what advice do you have to young college students who want to go into law?
At the age of 10, I made a decision because I was involved in the criminal justice system. I ended up going to CPS, Children's Protective Services, because I and my siblings were being abused, me particularly physically, sexually, emotionally abused. And so it was my first experience dealing with the criminal justice system. And at that age, I had made a decision that I wanted to advocate for those who could not advocate for themselves. It was such a strong decision and intention. I had such certainty that I can tell people that was one of the most easiest things for me was to become a lawyer, because there was no doubt or uncertainty about wanting to help and serve my people. So I tell the young people that if that is something that they choose to do, don't do it for the money. Do it because you want to serve. Do it because you want to stand up for people's right and advocate for them. And in the process of doing that, you want to make sure that you read. Reading is going to be very important. We know that's the first command that was given to the prophet.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Reading thy name of thy Lord. And so reading is going to be very important. Current events, I had a great mentor. I used to work in politics as well. And he is a brilliant man. And, he told me, he's a lawyer as well. And he told me that you have to read what's going on in the world. You have to know history. History is going to be so important because we don't want to repeat it. We want to have the ability to change it. And then you want to be multidimensional in what you do read, not just current events, but you want to read books on psychology. You want to read, books on mathematics and physics and, metaphysics, science. So you have to be well read. And then when you get to law school, it is not about the right answer. Like when you take a test, Brother Joshua, it's not, pick the right answer, it's pick the best answer. And why is it the best answer? Is because all the fact patterns are going to be correct. All the scenarios are going to be correct, but you got to pick the one with the most favorable answer. And so that requires logical thinking. So I suggest to my young people, do games of logics, puzzles, Sudoku, that luminosity, those types of things to help, get your mind to be extremely flexible, because you need to be able to think on your feet. And then the other thing is to have the ability to speak well. You may not be a great public speaker, but the more you speak, the more you get comfortable, you're able to articulate your arguments. And so, you got to tell stories, because criminal law is about telling stories. You got to tell the story, and you got to tell the best story.
Yes, ma'am.
And so if I could give some of those things, but you got to have passion for the law. You got to have, and then finally, you got to have passion for the people that you're representing, because I do not represent anybody that, I don't feel that I can fully represent. Like every client to me is like a family member. And, I take on not just a client, but I take on the family. Most of the time, it's the mother, it's the grandmother, it's the girlfriend that I'm speaking with, somebody in the family. It may be a child who's 17 years old. It may be a grown man with a mental health disability. So when I speak with them, these are my people, and so I want to do everything I can to help represent them, to give them the freedom, justice, and equality, and the mercy, and the grace that they deserve.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Great answer. And thank you for your honesty and transparency. My sister Miriam sends the greetings. My uncle Jamil sends the greetings. Sister Salima sends the greetings. Thank you all. And everybody, please
return to my family the greetings.
Yes, ma'am. And please like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Once we put it on YouTube, every comment matters. My next question for you, ma'am, is you spoke on abuse. What advice, that's been the reality for a lot of my guests, for a lot of people who I've interacted with in my personal life and in our families. It seems to be rampant in our community, especially. What advice would you give to people on how to overcome abuse?
You got to get the necessary help. Like mental health is real. And, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan introduced us to a technology that would help with those things that have been done to us, those things that we've seen done to others, right? Those things that we've done to other people and the things that we've done to ourselves.
Yes, ma'am.
And, having the ability to be introduced to that particular technology, which is Dianetics.
Yes, ma'am.
And, really dedicating myself to the process of healing, because I call myself a servant, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Of the Most High God. But I cannot serve those or be out in the street to serve others when I'm broken and hurt, because what will end up happening is, and what has happened in the past, is that someone who's hurt, who's ailing, who's broken, they're going to lash out, because that's all they know is pain, right?
Yes,
they're
ma'am.
triggered
Yes,
by something. And if their trigger triggers me and it gets me into my hurt and my pain, then I have the inability to be able to help them. So through the grace of Allah, I was able to actually go all the way to clear.
Okay.
Which means that I was able to eliminate my reactive mind. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said he wanted his laborers to be clear so that we can go after our people. And I took that as a mandate. And it is my desire to help my people to the fullest, to help my brothers and my sisters so that they may be healed, whatever that capacity is. I'm not I'm not one dimensional when it comes to advocating for my people.
Yes,
I'm a legal advocate, but I'm also a spiritual advocate. I'm an emotional, I'm a mental advocate, and I'm a physical advocate as well, because how to eat to live is real.
Yes, ma'am. Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Great. And I am definitely a mental health advocate, and I am a supporter of Dianetics. Has done wonders for me, and I can't wait till I'm able to go clear too very soon, inshallah. My sister Naima said, "I'm like my sister Miriam said, all praise due to Allah." Thank you. Okay, so you came in late, so we already answered that. She already answered that question. But thank you all for continuing to watch People's Podcast. My next question for you, ma'am, is television shows like Law and Order and so many shows like I'm Matlock or whatever. I love law shows. Is there any realism in that?
There's some realism, and I try to shy away from those particular type of shows because a lot of it is sensationalized, and they really don't truly tell our story. You know, because again, most of the people you see in the courtroom are people who made mistakes and are looking for mercy and grace or someone to really advocate. And then there are a lot of people who you have dirty cops, let's just be real about it, who for whatever their reason is, feel that they have to victimize and prey on us. And so for me to advocate or fight on my behalf is to make sure that the cop is exposed, the officer is exposed, the lies are exposed, and that my client is exonerated. So I try to stay away from there are some good shows, right? But some of it is bad law, it's not realistic, and then it's just sensationalized.
Yes, ma'am. Well, speaking of dealing with law enforcement, and just you being on the forefront for justice, have you ever faced fear? And if so, how did you overcome that fear?
At some point, we're all going to face fear.
Yes, ma'am.
But my courage was greater than my fear. My service to my people was greater than my fear. I remember my first criminal court case, and I go into the courtroom, and it was the unknown. So fear is false evidence appearing real, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's always that unknown that we fear. And so it causes us to have anxiety, and anxiety is stuff that happens in the future, right? We projecting into the future.
Yes, ma'am.
And so my first time going into the courtroom, I didn't know the coordinators, I didn't know the judge, I didn't know the prosecutor. I wasn't familiar because I was a spanking brand new attorney. But what I did know was the law. And that's all I could hang my hat on was the law. And this prosecutor, he was arrogant. But when I read the facts of the case and I knew what the law was, I had the courage enough to go in with what I knew, right? And my very first case, I had the ability to get a dismissal because of my advocacy and knowing what that law was and being able to apply it to the facts on my behalf of my client.
Beautiful.
So fear is, is always ever present when you have some unknowns. But the more you do something, the more certainty you get, right? And then it's even in the unknown, that's when faith comes in, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so now I don't know what's going to happen, but because of what I do know, and because of who I know backs me and my faith, I've seen some supernatural things happen in the courtroom that people told me should not have happened, wasn't going to happen. And I'm the type of person, I'm gonna just try anyway. And I have a great mentor. He says, how does he put it? It ain't over until we win. And
yes,
so we keep going until there's a win. And wins look different in different situations, right? A win may be somebody who was looking at 99 years in jail and end up with 5 years of probation.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a win, right?
It is.
So it looks different for different people.
Beautiful.
But fear is always ever present, but my faith and my courage is stronger than the fear.
Praise be to Allah. And thank you for your great representation. Now, can you give us the website again of your you say because you don't promote, so how can people get you? Because once people see this, they're gonna be like, if I get in trouble, I want to reach out to attorney Sister Sadiyah. How can they reach out to your company one more time?
So avvo.com, avvo.com, and you just put my name in there.
Yes, ma'am.
And you'll see all my reviews. You can reach me on Facebook, Sadiyah Karriem, Instagram, Sadiyah Karriem. And then, of course, my telephone number, which I've had in existence almost 20 years, 832-623-2323.
Wonderful. Praise be to Allah. So many people showing you love.
Thank you. And
support. Excellent. My next question for you, ma'am, is dealing with this work. Have you ever had to do work for the minister or for the nation in law?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. And privilege. So you see this picture?
Mm.
I don't know if you can see this picture. Let me see.
I can see it a little bit. Yes, ma'am. I can see it a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
Let's see. Okay, let me bring it up. It's that's me and the minister. There it is. So I keep this picture on my desk, and you know, it is my prize and possession because it's a reminder of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I know that, you know, he is the epitome of freedom, justice, and equality. He is the metaphor. If you look in the dictionary, that's him.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I had the opportunity through our dear student national secretary, Brother Saad Muhammad, he organized a meeting with all of the lawyers in the Nation of Islam. And I was a baby in the Nation of Islam at that. I wasn't even in the nation maybe a year when I had the opportunity. I was just glad to sit at the table and to be a part of that number.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I was not jockeying for a position. I didn't want him to know my name. I just wanted to be there to show whatever I could do to serve. That's what I wanted to do.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was, I believe, in 2010 that happened. And so fast forward to 2016, I had been helping Brother Saad. He had came to Houston for a business meeting, and I believe he saw me on a rostrum one time. And you heard about my activism because I do a lot of activism here, social justice activism here in Houston. Yes, with Brother Derek Muhammad with the Millions More movement.
Yes, ma'am.
And he saw me on a rostrum one day. And so he came down and he started asking about could we meet and talk about the case, our dear brother who was killed in Grand Rapids. And so he gave us some information ahead of time. And for me, I took it so seriously. Like I had mocked it up. I looked at the offense report. I had pictures. I mean, I was ready to come with my bazooka to give him whatever ammunition he needed. And so at that time, you know, he was just looking. He was, you know, trying out the field. So he gave me some other projects to work on, you know, some briefs. I do brief writing, you know, excellent at research. I can find a needle in a haystack if you ask me. And then one day he asked me to just help to come down 2016 and be present for a hearing and just do some legal research. And next thing I know, you know, it's me, Brother Saad, Brother Arf, Sister Tamara. It was we call it hashtag Team Muhammad.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're, you know, we're still going on, you know, it ain't over until we win, right? And so, you know, we know the history of the case. You can look it up, go to the final call. Minister Farrakhan came to Grand Rapids and he spoke about it. So you can go on YouTube and look. Yes, but to be able to be in the trenches, serving not only our nation, but serving Brother Minister Robert Muhammad and his family, Sister Uriva.
Yes, ma'am.
To be at the forefront with that, next to Brother Saad. You know, the work is hard, it's arduous, it's not for the faint heart. You get to see the enemy up close, but it's an honor and a privilege. And we have a $1.5 million judgment on our head, but we don't flinch, you know, because it's money, right? Our brother lost his life.
That's right.
Sister Uriva doesn't have her husband anymore. Those 8 babies don't have their father anymore. Yes, so the loss that I may incur or Brother Saad may incur is nothing compared to what they have incurred. So for us, you know, we don't flinch over that money because we know that Allah will restore whatever. And we're still fighting because it ain't over because we haven't won yet on this physical plane, right?
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. And I've had the honor of interviewing Sister Uriva on the People's Podcast, and she did such a strong sister and her family, and we send our prayer and our love to them. And thank you all for being in the forefront and fighting for them in the courtroom. That means a lot. Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah.
Yes, ma'am. Well, when was the first time that you heard the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
So, you know, I grew up, I was deep, eyeball deep in the church. You know, I was a young people's director. I was a president of the youth department. You know, when the doors of the church opened, I was there. Vacation Bible school, you know, and I remember the foster mother that I was living with, she was very active in the community activism as well. So, you know, when there was a protest, she was there. Somebody getting killed, she was there, and I was right behind her. And I remember in 1990, Stop the Killing. Minister Farrakhan came to Houston. I was 15. And she had gotten some tickets to be able to go. And when I tell you, just going to the Coliseum and just the sight of all the Black people coming to hear this man, I didn't know anything about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but I was curious. What struck me first, though, was the MGT and their beautiful garments and how majestic they look, and the power and the strength and the femininity and the beauty that they had in these garments. But in that was strength as they were checking people. And so just being able to encounter that, it never left my mind. And then when I got inside of the Coliseum, we ended up getting tickets that were close to the stage on the floor.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I'm looking around, and it's like a sea of Black people. And you would swear it was a concert, but who is this man? And, of course, you have people who warm up the rostrum for the minister, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And, their words were like fire. And then this beautiful man came out. I never forget. And I remember noticing the energy of the room and how serene it was and how powerful. It was very palatable. You could put it, you could touch it. And just sitting on every word and just listening to every word that he spoke. He talked about his Mother Samaya. He talked about his experience coming up. It penetrated my heart. It was like an antenna that just went off. And then I was on fire. So I had a group of friends who didn't go to the same school I went to. They went to my cousin's school, and they were going to the mosque for study group. So we would sneak and go to study group on Friday nights. And then I just happened to be in, advanced placement AP English. And one of the books, this is how Allah do this thing. It's all a setup.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm in this class, and there's only 2 Black people in the class, but I had a white teacher who wanted us to read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And so not only did I have this experience, but now I'm reading this book. So it's only really like instilling and penetrating me even more about these teachings, through the autobiography of Malcolm X. And so it never left me. Fast forward, I go to college, Texas A&M, all white, mostly white university, 2% African Americans out of 40,000 students, which is not a lot. And Million Man March coming up. And so it's like all the brothers on campus. And me, I was always a radical. So after hearing the minister at 15, I was power to the people. And I had principals had to sit me down, talk to me when Rodney King was beat up by the LAPD. They pulled me to the side because the next day I got buttons for everybody. No justice, no peace.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And so they thought I was, a live wire. And I was, at that time, still am, but more controlled.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So there was a brother who came to my campus at Texas A&M. And when I tell you, he laid into them white people, and he started talking about them teachings even more. And so that fire started to rekindle. And then I started finding myself getting close to people who were in the Nation of Islam and just kind of picking their brain. And then the journey I went to seminary school. So I graduated from college, then I went to law school. And one of my best friends was a Muslim, Rabia Badruddin. And so I would always, ask her questions about being a Muslim. And then it wasn't until I started working in politics. And I remember at the time, it was Minister Robert Muhammad, right? So I was working for a congresswoman, and 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, it was my job in her office to get all the federal agencies together and have a town hall meeting and invite all the important stakeholders, community people. Mind you, I'm like 21 years old. I'm a baby, but Allah had put me in a position to be able to have the ability to bring people together and to connect with people in such high power. And I remember filling up this auditorium with all of these people, the community and all, all these governmental agencies, and the Nation of Islam came up in there. And the brothers, they was peppered through all, the whole, of course we was on high alert. And Brother Abdul Halim sitting on stage. And when he stood up and he spoke a strong word, all the brothers stood up all at the same time. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right. I see y'all. So that left a mark on me. And I tell Brother Abdul Halim all the time about how the presence of the nation in the Houston community was such a force, right? Because we didn't have that, outside of the Nation of Islam. Kind of watered down, we try, but to have the strength and the people stay at the forefront. And then it wasn't until I became a chief of staff for a council member. So I'm doing all, my little rotation, and I became a chief of staff for a council member. And Brother Abdul would come up there all the time. And I end up having to become a visiting professor at Texas Southern University. So mind you, I'm like almost the same age as my students that I'm teaching law classes. And he was in the School of Public Affairs working on his PhD. So I'd pass him by and say, how you become a Muslim? He said, it's easy, and he wouldn't, at the time, wouldn't tell me how easy it was. So I just kept asking him. But mind you, I was in seminary school at that point. Because I've always been a seeker of knowledge. Yes, I've always been a seeker of wisdom wherever I go. Even now, I'm seeking and seeing how it relates to these teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it's always that filter. And then one day he said, just accept it, accept yourself, be yourself and accept your own. Also, that's too easy. And I came to the mosque. One day I just decided I'm just going to come to the mosque. And I came to the mosque, and by the grace of Allah, I tell you, everything's always a setup.
Yes, ma'am.
So, here I am, 25 years old, 26 years old, I'm independent. I got my own money. I'm traveling the world, going to all of these international countries. And then Allah places my nieces and my nephews in my custody. And my life comes to a halt, So all of this freedom that I was experiencing in my mind, Allah placed these children in my care, in my custody, in my possession. And so I remember someone saying his son went to MUI. And I had a 2-year-old little boy, and I had a 4 and a 5-year-old little girl at the time. And so MUI, I put him in nursery school, but they said, he's a bad little boy. It's like, no, that's not what I've been taught. Sister Lydia at MUI, I went, knocked on the door, the executive director at the time, and she said, I'll take him. And every day when I would go to the school, she'd sit and she'd talk with me. And she'd talk with me. And then I was doing community work. And then I met Brother Derek Muhammad. And, I had a nonprofit organization with concerning women. And so one day we said, well, let's join up. And we did. And then Sister Lydia, she was working on me. Sister Lydia was just working on me. And my son was flourishing. He's my son now because I eventually adopted him.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was like, what am I waiting on? I left seminary school because it was very, very misogynistic as it concerns the Bible. I did 2 years. It was a 3-year program. And I decided to just walk to the front and to accept the calling. And I never looked back. And I don't regret it. And I think because the life that I live, the life that I have now, but for accepting these teachings, I'm telling you, I would have still been in them. I don't know what would have happened. I can't even fathom what would have happened. But Allah had a plan for me, and the world wasn't it. And being in the nation and community building and nation building, this is where it's at for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so many people showing you love, and thank you for your amazing testimony. Speaking of your son, and how that came about. What advice would you give to family members who are put in that position to step up and take other children?
For me, it was easy in the beginning. I say in the beginning, to take on the challenge because I had been in foster care. And so experiencing the injustices in foster care, people, I went to several homes, there was abuse still there. You get lost in the system as a child, you want to belong, you want to be with your own. So it wasn't a difficult situation for me, but it was a tremendous sacrifice. And when I say a tremendous sacrifice, because the life that I had to be willing to sacrifice it for the greater good. Now, when they get grown and out the house, I can probably go back to that if I desire, but that's not my desire anymore, because I had to get out of it's like Allah had to put something in front of me that was greater than myself and greater than me.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I accepted them. And then a few years later, I ended up meeting my husband, Brother Kasala.
Yes, ma'am.
And they ended up back home with their parents, the 3 children that I had. And then Allah brought me and my husband together. We had our first child. And then soon thereafter, we ended up getting them back together, getting them again, plus 1 more. So now I have a 9-month-old and then 4 other children. And we're not even a year into, not even 2 years into our marriage. So, he doesn't give you more than you can handle. And when I tell you that he blessed us in such a tremendous way, because when we received that big responsibility, my husband didn't flinch. Some men, they be like, that's your family. No, we're not doing that. Like it was, and I'll be honest, it got trying for me sometimes, like, this is too much. He's like, no, we're going to keep going. We can't give them back. We're not giving them back. It's not an option. We're going to figure it out. Financially, Allah blessed us because we didn't have to think about that, because it was a tremendous expansion, right? So we went from 3 people to 6 people overnight. So bigger house, bigger car, more responsibility. Now I'm dealing with older children. And children who have their own trauma and their own engrams and their own things that they're dealing with. So, you can't think about it. If that is something you're going to do, you have to have certainty with it and know that Allah will provide you whatever it is. And even through the trials and the tribulations, he's going to get you through. And he's done that. And, praise be to Allah, we got one that's 21, one that's 20. David, he's 17, the 2-year-old little boy I took to MUI. He just got his black belt. He's in processing class. I mean, he's a beautiful young man. And total, I have 7 children. And, it's like, I just ask him to expand my territory and give me the ability and equip me to not only, to bless these children, but to be able to be a blessing to other people as well. And I teach, spiritual consciousness is very important for me as a mother, teaching my children as well. And I want them to see me serve, and then they have a desire to serve as well.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. And some people are commenting and showing you love. Can you please explain spiritual, what you just said?
Spiritual consciousness?
Yes, ma'am.
So, we can get caught up in religion. I've studied religion, different kind of religious practices. But we forget about the spiritual connection, the oneness with Allah that comes with that, and that we are all one with Allah. And so, having moral character or being empathetic or participating in the service of helping our fellow brothers and our sisters is very important. And being attuned and connected to Allah, being able to have the ability to sit still and just listen for a word from him and to know that it's him and to move out, we call it the Muhammad in our self-accusing spirit, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And so, the elevated places, it's a MUI school here in Houston. Sister Wakiti and Sister Melva are the co-directors of the school. That is, of course, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is always at the forefront. Yes, they've allowed me to come into the school and to teach the science of being a God, metaphysics, right? Quantum physics, to the children, so that they know that they are connected to a greater universe, that it is just not the physical plane that we're dealing with, but something, the seen and the unseen.
Yes, ma'am.
You know? So, and my children, they see that, you know, every day in my house. And so I have a duty and a responsibility. You know, I consider myself a mystic, right? You know, and so and God has blessed me with certain gifts and skills and talents and knowledge that we have the duty and the responsibility to share it, so that we can be greater in the service to Allah and humanity.
Praise be to Allah. Excellent, excellent. And thank everyone for watching the People's Podcast. So many people are saying, beautiful, a beautiful sacrifice, beautiful, praise be to Allah. Excellent. I don't have a few more questions. I have a lot of questions more for you, man, because so many questions that I look forward to addressing. We have a quick 60-second commercial break for the People's Podcast. For all of the sponsors of this month's podcast, I want to thank you all. If you all like to be a sponsor or donor, please cash app the People's Podcast. My brother Rashad, Street Premier Media Production. He has a 4K camera, a drone. He does television and film editing. Thank you very much. My sister Miriam. Okay, here we go. All right. Here we go. Well, of course, it just freezes like that. Okay, 1 second. Here we go. Sadiyah. 1 second. And thank everybody for watching the People's Podcast too. As the PowerPoint, I don't know what's going on with the PowerPoint. God dang. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Boom, just like that. You know, all right. It's like the webcast, Sister Sadiyah. You know, sometimes just freezes.
Hey, we're not going anywhere. That's okay.
My sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book, both of which are available on Amazon. Make sure you go out and get that. My sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. We love our tiny dancers. Also, MTS Car Bros, any make, any model, any year. Our brothers out of Los Angeles selling cars and vehicles, 30 to 50% off. Make sure you reach out to them. Brother Enoch out of Chicago, Hip Hop Detox is a holistic approach into teaching in the school systems, high schools, middle schools, all across the country. Thank you very much, Brother Enoch with Hip Hop Detox. He does a great job using music and arts to help our future. Sister Latasha Muhammad out of Indianapolis, Queen is I, Poetry and Apparel. Sister Latasha Muhammad, Queen is I, Poetry and Apparel. Make sure you get her shirts and her poetry. She's an amazing poet as well. Dr. Henry M. Carter, King Henry Turkey Legs, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Rashad Muhammad, COVID-19 Disinfecting Cleaning Services out of Chicago. We're coming right back to our sister attorney, Sadiyah Muhammad. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ, AbdulSharif.com. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, which is on Amazon as well. And Sister Sadiyah is an author, so I look forward to hearing about her books as well. 1 second, I just want to make sure that we play our new sponsors, Asiatic Minds. Speaking of education, Asiatic Minds, and then we're coming right back to Sister Sadiyah.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Classes begin September 1st. To enroll, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
Boom. Just like that. We're right back to Attorney Sister Sadiyah.
Asiatic.
Okay, 1 second. Okay. It's still going to the background. Okay, but Sister Sadiyah, speaking, I have to ask you about education. How important is education to us as a people, but and also to us as a nation?
It's going to be through education that's going to lift us up. And, you know, education has been hidden from us for so long. You know, most of my money goes to the elevated places. That's why I jokingly laugh and say that's, you know, it's the only reason why I go to work is so that we can send them to elevated places so they can get a real education. But education is not just in the books, you know, or just reading, but it's experiencing life, it's observing, it's participating, it's practicing. But we have to be taught right. And so what has happened is we've been taught wrong. We've been taught somebody else's paradigm. We've been taught to be the 85%, you know, when we're really the 5%.
Yes, ma'am.
And the hidden lost knowledge, and and it's going to be in the books, and so for me, education, like school, has always been my thing. I knew, like, I loved school when I was a young person. I remember getting a chicken pox like at 7 years old, and at the end of the school year, and I couldn't get, how you have your leftover books and workbooks and stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
I couldn't get it to work on them during the summertime, and that tremendously depressed me because I love learning. And to this day, I'm always studying something novel, something new. I'm just weird like that. And I had an opportunity to take this course. It's called the Student Hat, and it is a course. It's a deep, heavy technology study technology where you have the ability to just learn anything. Like whatever the subject matter is, but you have to be equipped with the tools to know how to study. And so we're taught in the Nation of Islam, that first 6 months that we're in the Nation of Islam, or we come in, we literally lose our mind because that's all we do is study groups, study all of these teachings. And we have a desire to study because that's what lifts us up spiritually. I remember in that meeting with the attorneys, the Honorable Minister Sis Farrakhan told us attorneys, he said it's the hold on, I got it right here, the supreme wisdom. It's the supreme, this little bitty book right here was going to lift us up way beyond the clouds, far into the universe and the galaxies, more than we could do in our own law books. And I believe that. And every time I go to the supreme wisdom or to the study guide, it's always something new there in the revelation of Allah. And the thing is, right now we're in the midst of Ramadan, and part of participating in Ramadan is reading the Holy Quran, one section a day. So by the time we begin and we end, we have completed reading the holy book. And it's every time you read it, it's something different, something you've learned, the education from it. And it's coupled with our life experience, right?
Yes, ma'am. Because
you may go through something and now you see a ayat or a scripture that means something totally different to you.
Yes, ma'am.
So now you have the practical wisdom and experience to go with what you're reading, and it's not just some words on a piece of paper. And the minister told us during Savior's Day, he said words matter, right?
That's right.
Words matter, and there's so much science in that if we but understood words. I do a lot on that. So education is at the forefront of any civilization. We are taught. It's torchlight. It's one of the torchlights of civilization. So yes, in my house, education is highly important. And it's not just what they get in the four walls of the school, but it's the experience as well. Putting them in environments where they can learn, in situations where they can learn. I'm always teaching my children, I'm always lecturing. It's always a lecture about something, I was like, oh, mama, really? But yes, you can't say anything to me. And then it's like the minister, you sit down with him and he has so many jewels for you, and you thought you was showing up for one thing, but you got something else.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So knowledge, education, is one of the torchlights.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Now we got to clear this word mystic, because my sister's all about the Black women and magic and the power of the mind and metaphysics, everything you just said. When you said that the mystic, how can other women who want to tap into that power, what can they do?
So we are made in his image and his likeness. We are gods.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we already have that power imbued in us, right? So those things that Christ can do, right? That we have the ability to do, but we have so much garbage and so much junk and so many distractions that we can't really tap into the God in ourselves. We're always looking on the outside in order to fulfill ourselves, instead of looking on the inside and being in tune. And we got too many distractions. You start off with prayer and the ritual of prayer, then the ritual of prayer becomes something different, where you have the ability to tune into Allah and hear him, and he will direct and he will guide you if you but pay attention.
Yes, ma'am.
And then being in present time. Many of us, we're not in present time. We are in the past, based on our hurts and our failures and things that have happened to us. And then a lot of us, we're in the future. We can't be here so that we can be aware and present of what's going on in our reality and know that, who's the original man, the maker, the owner, the God of the universe. We can create everything in our universe. It's not the material things that control us, right? It's we that control the material things if we but understood.
Yes, ma'am.
And our thoughts are supremely powerful. That's why studying and education is important, so that we can learn more things, so that our thoughts may be more complex, and that we won't be stuck inside of a box of what we can't do as opposed to what we can do.
Yes, ma'am.
Intention is real for me, and being intentional. Myself and 4 other sisters in the nation, we started a women's organization called Queendom Come,
Yes,
Incorporated, nonprofit organization. It came out of saving our girls. And it was such a beautiful experience that we wanted to continue that. But part of the mission of Queendom Come is to live your purpose on purpose, meaning we're giving the sisters tools so that they can be purposeful in life, and not just accidental. We're gods. We can create our own reality.
Yes,
if
ma'am.
we but understood. And Allah has given us so many tools to be able to do it. And of course, I'm a mom of 7. I've always been one about efficiency and life hacking. So I've done figured out some ways in order to make things happen faster.
Yes, ma'am.
Hacking into energy, into thoughts, into things. So we have that ability to do that if we but knew for sure and certainty that he made us into his likeness and into his image.
Beautiful.
And we're one with him.
Praise be to Allah. Well, I have a question. I know you said you don't like Law and Order and stuff like that, but do you watch X-Men and Wanted,
Yes.
like Avengers and stuff like that? I was talking to my family about that earlier. I said, this is no movie that I've ever seen. Of course, The Matrix and the Godfather, there's all kind of movies. But X-Men, if we study it just a little bit more, you will see the teachings manifested through human beings in a way. Avengers, all that, like, it's like, man, we God, like, they showing it, they explaining it. It's like, I don't know, we ain't catching it. But
yes, but if you study history and civilizations of past, they had these God powers that were not, that were normal, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And we've lost in our thinking, the way this world is set up now, we've lost the ability to be able to do that. Or there's certain few people who have the ability, but they hide the knowledge from us, so that we will not be able to use it, because some people will get this knowledge and they, use your powers for evil, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And when I was young, I knew I was Wonder Woman. Like, that was my thing. I was Wonder Woman. That's who I was. I was a black version of her.
Yes, ma'am.
But I was Wonder Woman. And I would exaggerate and tell my friends I came from this island. I did this. I did. I had all these powers. But I believe that I did. I truly believe that I did. And I truly believe that I have those powers to this day as well.
Praise be to Allah. With anybody who's around me, they're going to hear Avengers of one side and X-Men. I'm saying we gods. We walk in the earth, 5%, the 10% always trying to go to war against us to keep the 85. Like I'm always talking, so they be like, yes, Josh, we know.
That's right. And the media, the Hollywood, they know too. Absolutely. That's why they disguise it in the manner that, nothing is new under the sun. And that's why they disguise it the way that they do as well. And it's for people like me and you and the followers of Honorable Elijah Muhammad that we can see through the veil. Absolutely. Right?
And one more point before we come to this, I was talking to some people earlier, and I was explaining to them. I said, when we see black superheroes or characters on the screen, it'll be like they won't have the highest power, right? But we'll identify with them because we're black. But then there'll be a white dude over here who's really controlling the rain, hail, storm. And I'm like, nah, don't look at the black one. Look at this one and identify with the power. Don't get caught in the color, because they'll give us the worst superhero. He can't do nothing but crawl up a wall. But here go another man that's really controlling. I'm like, bro, that's the guy right there. That's us. But they always give us some side. Whatever. I digress.
With Dr. Strange, what was his name? Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Dr. Strange is a god. Absolutely.
Right. And you say that, but the elevated places, in my metaphysics class, we took the children to go see Dr. Strange. And of course, just show, like, look at this, look at what he's doing, listen to what he's saying. And there's so much teachings in that.
It is.
So absolutely. So yes, sir, I'm with you on that one.
Praise be to Allah. My next question for you is, what advice would you give to future wives?
Study yourself. And I know I said that really quickly. But you got to study yourself. And a lot of times we're so busy trying to study a man. In our class, we are taught to make Allah sufficient. And in studying ourselves, we have to study who God is, because then that's where we'll find who we are. And when we know who we are and what our value as women of God, and how we are the second self of him, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And don't get me to start preaching now. And when he looked inside himself, he found the best part, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
and
ma'am.
So when we start studying ourselves, because that's where God is, in the feminine aspect of who Allah is, then when Allah blesses us with our husband, then we'll be able to recognize the God that's in him, right? Past all his faults and all his flaws. Now, as Black women, we always see potential in Black men, right? But there is a standard, right? Yes, I knew before coming into the mosque that I wanted to marry an FOI. As crazy as it sounds, I did not want a man of this world because his mind was not of God. And so when you come into these teachings, because somebody's gonna listen to this podcast who's not in the mosque, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
When you come into these teachings, there is a renewing and a transformation of your mind. And even the worst of us in the Nation of Islam is still better than what's out there in the world. And so I say that to the sisters, you want to find somebody who is studying these teachings, because it is high science. It is an elevation of a lifestyle. It is an elevation of not only just the physical, because we get how to eat to live, right? And our whole makeup and our DNA starts to change because we have how to eat to live. Then our thoughts are different because we are getting a new education. We are studying. And so our thoughts are transforming into something else. And then when your thoughts transform into something else, then your actions transform into something else. Even when you have the past pain and engrams that are still there, we're still better than what we were in the world. And then now you couple it with the tools of Dianetics, and sisters, you make sure that your husbands at least get life repair before y'all get married, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Because in life repair, you get some of those things that you've done in the world, and the energy that's connected to that, wiped away. And so some of that dross that we had on ourselves, that it no longer affects us going into the future. And having the ability to submit to another man, to submit to God, to submit to his man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the messenger and Master Father Muhammad. Ultimately, the minister told us, to pray in their names and in his names.
Yes, ma'am.
And if he has a difficulty praying in their names, then he has a difficulty submitting his will to Allah. And he's going to have a difficulty being your husband. So sisters, study yourself, study God, make him sufficient.
Yes, ma'am.
And then when Allah blesses you, or you think Allah is blessing you with the man, then try him, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then try him, as the minister tells us. Don't cast your pearls to swine, right?
Yes, ma'am.
It's okay. He's going to bless you, I promise you. And you got to be intentional about it too. With my husband, before we even, everything that I do that's of significance, and even not significant, I try to be intentional. But that's such a big thing. I just don't want a man for the sake of having a man. I'm kingdom building, right? I'm nation building.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I'm drawing in this energy, into my body for a particular type of child that's going to help humanity.
Come on.
And so you talked about the book that I have a legal book, and then I have a book that I'm writing. And in this book that I'm writing, it's how to give birth to a God, and studying the teachings of how to give birth to a God, and bringing gods into existence from a practical level, so that it's not hit or miss, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about in the lecture series. It's always right on time and exact, because that's who we are. We're gods, and we can create. So I can go on and on and on, Brother Joshua. I mean, you like, right, this is right up my alley.
Praise be to
So
Allah.
praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah for what you do on this podcast.
Okay.
And you know, the blessing that Allah has blessed you during this COVID period to be able to bypass what may be out there in the world and then virtually still be able to connect with people and help elevate the minds and the hearts of our people. So thank you for what you do, bro.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. You're getting so much love in the comments. Thank you all. Sister Aisha from Phoenix, Sister Valerie from Los Angeles, our brother Taylor. So many people who I can't mess everybody's name up. So just everybody, a lot of people showing you love. Life repair. Sister Valerie was talking about life repair as well. I got it, and it was life changing. When my mother and my sister Naima drove, we drove to Tennessee. They dropped me off. I was like, hey, I'm be up here for a week. Because they didn't have the main org here in Atlanta at the time. So I went, did that, hands on the cans, all of that, and it changed my life. I wrote a book, went back to school. Like I was like, all right, let's go. I got to get life repair again. I got to stay on top of it because I want to get clear. But I definitely see the value in that. How important is finding someone who is aware of their mental health in relationships?
It's supremely important because it's going to affect how you relate, the affinity, the reality, and the communication.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And so if they are in denial about their mental health or afraid to confront it, because that's really what it's about. Confront is about communicating, and confronting is to be there comfortably. Because if you can be there comfortably, whatever that situation is, then you can communicate to that situation.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I always give the example of a light bill that's past due. It's a pink bill. We know that the color pink means your electricity about to get cut off. And a lot of us, we may not have the money, right, to pay the bill. And so you throw it in the trash, and then your lights get cut off, and then it's a spiral down just from not being able to communicate with the bill. Then had you sat there and looked at the bill and say, you know what, I don't have the money. Let me just be here comfortably with it. Let me call these people, see if there's a program. Let me ask somebody. Let me do something for myself, right? And so dealing with mental health, dealing with the issues, and that, sisters, that's something else. You got to go into that brother's past history of the things that have happened to him in his life. Like I came with a lot more baggage than my husband did, right? So I knew that I had to do a lot of work, but I was committed to doing the work. Not that he didn't have any engrams, he had his own issues, but I knew I couldn't focus on the beam in his eye. I had to focus on my own beams in my own eye.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you know, the mental health is so important, because then how you respond to each other, your children are going to see that. And then they're going to be in a particular, they're going to mimic what you do, right? Because they think that's normal. We call that being in somebody else's valence.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So you take on someone else's personality. You don't even know it's not your personality, but you think this is the personality you need to have in order to survive. And then you just started seeing it generational. And when you talk about all the people that have dealt with the trauma that you've talked, you know, in your past podcast, it's because we're living somebody else's trauma on a repeated pattern, on a loop. And so, you know, what they say, generational curses stop. Well, you know, now it's about generational choices, right? What choice are we going to make for the new generation? And I believe these teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, through the divine guidance of the Honorable Minister Sis Farrakhan, it is the way, it is the truth, and it is the light.
Yes, ma'am.
And if we get the way, the truth, and the light, then we can change our whole paradigm, and we can bring in a new civilization, a new world order. And it's going to be through our children. So that relational, you know, the proper handling of people, but being able to really emote and relate to each other as male and female is going to be highly important. Relationships, highly important. And if you look, you know, YouTube, you see Honorable Minister Sis Farrakhan, he did a lot of lecturing on relationship.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? And that's where we need help, the ability to relate, because that's where we're working out our pain and our hurt and our traumas. We're working it in on us in relationships.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. And thank everyone for watching. So many people have commented and giving you so much. And they talking about the future's child. I mean, the spouse's childhood and so much. Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Thank everyone who was commenting and showing our sister attorney Sadiyah Karriem some love. My next question for you, ma'am, is what type of music do you listen to?
Oh man, everything, everything. I was listening to country music. I had to go to court out of town today, and I was listening to some chill music, some meditation music, some country music. You know, there was this brother, 17-year-old young brother, and I asked him what kind of music he listened to. So I started listening to his music just so I can get a feel and a vibe. So I'm open to everything, but I work out almost every day. So when I'm working out, it's Nipsey Hussle, it's Jay-Z.
Yes,
You know, I got music based on different moods that I have.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, R&B, old school. Some my children, they love K-pop.
Okay.
So I'm listening to their stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just open. I like good music though, but I'm open.
Praise be to Allah. Now we say country music. I always try to put the guests on the country music because so everybody comes. I like everything but country. What type of country music do you like?
You know, I like that old blues-ish. I
Okay.
done been through something country, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Like something with soul and heart and rhythm, not like Dixieland country.
Okay.
With a bunch of fiddles and
But there's a song, Chris Stapleton, I think it's the best country song like in the last 10 years, called Tennessee Whiskey.
Yes.
Yes. That's like my favorite song. I know everybody who gets mad when I play it all the time. I'm singing.
No, you're absolutely. It's very soulful, and it's like you feel it, don't you?
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
like you can transport into that particular person's mind at that, and that's good music. When it can be old, but you can go to where they were when they wrote that song.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So you're transported by music, and that's what I love about music.
Same here. Praise be to Allah. Now, I want to talk about the law book, and then the law book as far as, can you explain what your book about law is doing?
So my book it's a citizen's guide to law enforcement. So, dealing with police encounters. I did a lot of seminars on what to do when stopped by police. When I was teaching law classes at the university undergrad, one of the first things that I would tell my students on the very first day is never confess, never take a test, right? You remember that. You remember that for the rest of your life. But with these teachings, we're taught that you have respect for authority as long as it doesn't conflict with your religion or it jeopardizes your life, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But a lot of us, our young people, they don't have respect for authority. They're not like our grandparents or even our parents for that matter.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we see a lot of our children, unnecessarily being killed by the police because the lack of respect for authority. Even in your own household, you have children and they don't respect your authority, you're gonna go off on them. Yes, so that's just a human nature type of scenario. So for me, I wanted to equip my people, my brothers and my sisters in the community on what to do when you're stopped by police, so that you may be able to deal with it on the other side with 12 people as opposed to 6 people carrying your casket. So it's just a simple guide, very practical. What do you do when you stop by the police? What do you do if they arrest you? What do you do if they come to your house? What do you do if you are not a United States citizen? What do you do if you stop at an airport? So just some really practical things so that they won't need me in the end, or they can make my job and help me make my job better and help better represent them.
Praise be to Allah. Okay, well, there's a lot, like I said, it's going on in the community every other day on the news, is something dealing with the law enforcement. My question for you is, what the rule on getting on the floor? Like I saw somebody arguing with a police officer. As an attorney, what do you tell? Get on the floor, face down, handcuffs behind your back, and the dude was with his girlfriend, I'm assuming, and he didn't want to get on the ground and it just went left. What's the law on that?
So not complying with an officer's instruction. There is, in the state of Texas, there is an actual crime against that.
I can imagine.
Not complying. So they will use that in order to exert more excessive force because you're not complying with that law. And just period, like they have what you call pretextual stops. An officer can say that you violated a traffic stop. They can lie, right? and it happens so many times with racial profiling, driving while Black or brown.
Yes, ma'am.
And they'll stop you, and they'll say that you violated a traffic stop, and then they may find some illegal stuff or some legal, what they call contraband in your vehicle. And then the Supreme Court backs it up because they say it's okay for them to stop you, right, for a traffic stop. And then if they end up finding something else, then, you know, they can move forward with that particular type of case. So there's a lot of laws that are set up to help the police officer bring in convictions and stop Black and brown people. So if you look at the history, history is really important to me.
Yes,
the history behind the makeup of the police department, we know that it was nothing but slave patrol, right?
Yes,
and so we're looking at modern day slave patrol mentality. It has not left, it's still there. So that's what we're dealing with.
yes,
and our children, they are asserting their rights. They're not afraid of the police, and they're not afraid of death either. And that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing it in real time, live on video, social media. I was talking to Brother Saad yesterday. There was a case in Chicago where the officer stopped the individual, the brother, and they was trying to pull him out the vehicle, and the vehicle ended up moving forward, and the officer shot him in the back of the head, execution style. Yeah. These officers nowadays, they do not have respect for life nor authority, the higher authority at all, but for Black and brown life at all. So my attempt is to teach and train those so that they may be able to live. We can argue about the facts of the case later, but I want you to be able to go home to your mother, your father, to your children. And then you call me and I'll handle the rest on the other side. But I just need you to get to a safe space. So that was the mission and the purpose behind writing that particular book.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. There was a brother who, had to be like 2014, and he became, I'm not going to guess the wrong state, but he became something and he became a judge or a lawyer, but he was getting sworn in, and they asked him what he wanted to get sworn in. He said no, he was a Muslim. He swore in on the Holy Quran, and he said said Thomas Jefferson had a Quran, and it was like a big deal because it was like a Muslim was being respected in the courtroom, in the court system. In your experience, do Muslims get respected in the courtroom for standing on, like, being a Muslim?
Let me tell you something, Brother Joshua. You see how I'm dressed?
Yes, ma'am.
That's how I go into the courtroom.
Okay.
Either I have a headpiece or I have a drape scarf. And I go in with these teachings in my heart and going to represent my people. So I have a certain disposition. And the Muslims down there at the courthouse, Brother Warren, Sister Pam, Brother Theo, Sister Kiana, we go in there with a certain disposition and a certain certainty, knowing that we are backed by the God, his messenger, and his Messiah, right?
He's so alive.
And so there's an atmosphere when you are a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that you carry with you.
Yes, ma'am.
That people can't help but to respect and honor, because they know that you're not coming there to play.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And they know that you're coming in there with a higher authority that's at the forefront. And they know that you're coming in there prepared, right? And so, when I ask for something, I typically get it, because I'm not asked for something that I don't think that I can get. Or if I'm asking for something, or I'm pleading on behalf of my client, I'm pleading with all sincerity for their help and for their assistance and rehabilitation. Now, I want them to look at them as if they are human beings and not just some criminal or some person or some case or some conviction. So I make them look. And, as far as the judges go, I'm very respectful. And of course, most everything's on social media. So they see what's going on my social media page and what I'm doing. I've maybe had one judge who, tried to challenge me in a negative way. And I was respectful. I still have respect for authority.
Yes, ma'am.
Call on the God, and it was handled. The situation was handled.
Praise be to God.
But as believers, we come with a whole different atmosphere and a whole different attitude because of the love that we have for freedom, justice, and equality, and for our people. And I think the judges see that and they respect it. Therefore, they respect us.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. Excellent. And please, I want to make sure we thank Allah for your sacrifice and the sacrifice of your family for the great work that you all have done and continue to do. And shout out to brother attorney Theo, who is one of my mentors and who does a great job in Houston, but just a great job of, man, I talk to him at least once a week. He's
a beautiful brother. That he was in my law school class. We were in the same section during law school.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Beautiful. Keep up the great work, brother Theo. Okay, yes, ma'am. My last question for you is, what would you like your legacy to be, ma'am?
My legacy of love and justice. And, you know, I tell people, I joke around that I'm like Mother Teresa and a drill sergeant, all in, you know, wrapped in one.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? I can love you. I give you the shirt off my back. I'm going to go break my neck for you to do it. You know, I'm the one who fight the bully for your behalf, on your behalf.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Because I love you just like that. Like, let me be in the forefront and fight on your behalf, because I'm going to make sure that you get the justice that you deserve. And so love and justice will be my legacy.
Praise be to Allah. What a great legacy to have. So many people are showing you love. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe. I want to thank you again, Sister Sadiyah Karriem, Attorney Sadiyah Karriem, and thank everyone who was watching. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
All right.